So again, welcome everyone. I'm Michael Libeline, Division Chair-elect, Strategic Management Division, Academy Management. We have a real treat today. We have a session in the STR teaching series. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about digital strategy. So what's happened is Vinod Jain, Shrida, and Lokesh have come to us with a proposal of how we can start thinking about the implications of digitization in our economy and how it is updating how we think about strategic management and strategy. As you may know, Vinod is an expert in global and digital strategy and has won a Fulbright Award, several other awards, and he's brought together this wonderful panel to help us think about how changes in society are affecting what we think we know about something called strategy or strategic management. So with that, without further ado, I think I will hand this session over to Vinod and look forward to his comments and those from his panelists. I will make one final comment, and it's just administrative before that, and that is Tony Tong, an executive committee member from STR, will be monitoring the chat session today. The participants have asked us to remind you, please feel free to ask any clarifying questions, but if there are content questions, to hold those off as long as you can. I know that might be difficult from some academics, but hold those questions off, those content questions off to the end of the chat if you can. Okay, so without further ado, let me hand this over to the panel. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks also to Professor Heather Berry and Tony Tong for helping us organize this. Good morning, everyone. I'm really glad that we're all here talking about digital strategy and its importance to strategic management. After all, it's strategy. I'm Vinod Jain. By the way, can you see my screen? Can anyone see my screen? Or?
Yeah, we are all good. Yes, we are all good.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yes, Vinod.
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Vinod Jain. It's really my great pleasure to be here speaking to you all. And with me are two senior executives in the digital space. I'm a non-techie myself. If you saw my background, or if you didn't see, I have taught a strategy for 25 years. Strategic management, global business, and global strategy for 25 years. And none of those times included hardly anything about digital strategy. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. A special welcome to all the participants and those who are not here, they might see it later. Let me get started. So today, this is the focus. I'm going to spend about 40 minutes on my presentation. This will be followed by two case studies in the B2B space. And B2B because a lot of times we only talk of B2C businesses. But digital strategy is equally valuable to both B2C and B2B businesses. So the two guest speakers will present their own experiences in digital strategy for their own companies. Focus is rules and tools of digital strategy, rules being the economic principles behind digital businesses, and tools being digital technologies and digital business models. These are the three presenters. I'm Vinod Jain. Lokesh is a chief technology officer with a startup called Shiva.ai. But before that, he was co-founder of another startup where he was with them, I think, for about 11 years. That was Urgently. And he's going to talk about that in his session. And Sridharan Rangarajan is joining us from Berlin. He is a vice president of platforms for a very old legacy business called Viesman. It is no longer a legacy business because how much is greatly into digital business, partly because of Sridhar. Before that, he worked for many years with Bosch, and before that with the IBM, and so on. Almost all in technical jobs. I'm the non-techie here. So since I told you about my background in strategy, I think I need to also tell you a little bit about my interest and experience in digital business for the last 20 years. As long ago as in 2000, at the Academy of Management conference in Toronto, I designed and chaired a session, all academy session on business models in the new economy. And I recall there were like 250 people in the room, standing room only. In 2003 in Seattle, I presented a web all academy symposium on democratization of education, e-learning in the knowledge economy. In April, May 2000, through my company, Next Best Corporation, I ran an e-business strategy executive seminar. And the seminar started, it was on 6 Saturdays, starting on 1st April 2000. Unbeknown to us, dot-com bust had already taken place and we were promoting e-business strategy. But anyway, that was the seminar then. And we had about a dozen executives, including the executive vice president of a Fortune 500 company. I've had board positions in Ohio's IT Alliance and TIE DC. TIE, as some of you may know, is a worldwide association of executives, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. And I was on the board of their Washington, DC chapter. I ran 2 digital businesses, nextbase.com, which was, I think, reasonably successful, given that these were the early years of digital businesses. Unfortunately, it had to be shut down as soon as dot-com bust took place. In 2018, when I knew a lot about digital businesses, I started another company, opentowers.com, which was an abject failure. So there you are. Some of you may have seen my textbook on global strategy. The book I'm currently working on is Global Meets Digital, Global Strategy for Digital Businesses, Digital Strategy for Global Businesses. It's coming up later this year. And in fact, much of what I'm going to talk about is from part of a chapter from this book. So these are our executive speakers. Okay, why include a digital strategy in strategic management courses? Well, essentially, there are 3 kinds of products: physical, digital, and at the intersection of the 2, physical and digital, also known as Internet of Things or IoT. We'll have much to talk about IoT later today. So what I'm suggesting is that much of what we teach in strategic management relates to physical businesses and a lot on B2C contexts. I want to expand that to all 3 sides of what we teach in strategic management, digital businesses, and especially physical and digital businesses, or the IoT business. So think about it. Do your strategy courses cover only physical goods and services? It's time to include also digital businesses and IoT businesses, not just B2C, but also B2B. In fact, recently, I looked at the syllabi of the top 6 business schools, their MBA curricula for strategic management courses. The word digital didn't even appear in any of them. Even the word technology did appear. So talk about Internet of Things. These are goods which are physical and digital and connected to the internet. so that they may communicate with other IoT devices over the internet. An important characteristic is they are able to act independently of human intervention. And we will see many examples of these things as we go on. According to Oracle, the definition of IoT is the network of physical objects, and those are things, IoT, Internet of Things, that are embedded with sensors, software, and other technologies for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems of the internet. So here are some examples of IoT devices at home: smart thermostats, doorbells, security cameras, digital assistants, connected appliances, and so on. Now, we all have smartphones, the iPhone or the other smartphones. So would you say they are IoT devices? Well, they're physical and they're digital. They have dozens of sensors embedded into them, and they're connected to the internet. Does that make them IoT devices? Most people would argue yes. Some would say no, because an iPhone or a smartphone cannot act independently of human action. It's the apps in the iPhone that act. You can order food through an app. You can listen to music through an app. So the iPhone by itself is not an IoT device, but IO full of apps, yes, it's an IoT device. Coming to economics of physical and digital goods. We all know about the economics of physical goods. Marginal cost of producing an additional unit is positive. It can be small or large, depending upon the complexity of what we are trying to produce. Similarly, the marginal cost of sending an additional unit to a foreign location, to another location, is also positive. For digital goods, the marginal cost of producing and distributing a digital good is almost zero, practically zero. I mean, think of, let's say, Microsoft Office 365. Obviously, it cost Microsoft perhaps billions of dollars to develop Microsoft Office 365. To send an additional copy to you. In economics terms, a particular item can be used by only one individual at the same time. Digital goods are non-rival. A digital good can be used by any number of people at the same time. But millions of people can use the same product at the same time. We know that in economics, we all talk about diminishing returns to scale. In digital goods, there are increasing returns to scale because of network effects and the zero marginal cost. In economics, we have scarcity of resources, limited supply of most resources. In digital goods, there's inexhaustible supply. Quality does not deteriorate as more goods are produced, and there are no inventory issues. You don't have to stock digital goods in an inventory. Finally, physical goods, when you want to customize something, it's expensive and it can be time consuming. You might need jigs and fixtures. You might need different settings and so on to customize a physical good. Customizability is generally low cost and quick in digital goods, reasonably quick. I mean, for some simple digital goods, it may be just mean changing some lines of code, but not always. But definitely it is faster, lower cost than customizing physical goods. So also mentioned about the concept of network effects, also known as the Metcalfe's law. which is, I think all of us know that, as the number of users of a digital product increases, its value to the users increases exponentially. Fax machine. If I have a fax machine and nobody else has, it's worthless. But if a few people also have fax machine, then it's more valuable to me. If millions of people have a fax machine, then it is exponentially valuable to all the owners of fax machines. In fact, there's an interesting example when the fax machines were first coming out. I think that was sometime in the mid 70s. FedEx had the great idea, hey, why don't we install a fax machine in each of our offices? So if somebody wanted to send a fax from Washington, D.C. to their office in New York, so I will take my fax document to FedEx office close to me in Washington, D.C., and they will fax it to their office in New York, and they will hand deliver it to the customer. It was known as the 4-hour fax. It didn't long as fax machines became plentiful. So there are two kinds of network effect, direct and indirect. Direct network effect means if a business or a network benefits by having more people joining the network. So benefits from direct network effect when users of its products benefit from the existence of other users of the same product. Let's say, think of Spotify, a music sharing company. As more and more people subscribe to Spotify, that's the direct network effect. We can all benefit by sharing our playlists, for instance. And the indirect network effect arises in case of two-sided or multi-sided markets, where users in one side of the market benefit from the existence of users in another side of the market. If more artists join Spotify, more singers join Spotify, it will encourage more listeners to join Spotify. As more listeners join Spotify, it will encourage more artists to join Spotify. That's the indirect network. And these are really, really very powerful effects for digital products. Now, also including Internet of Things, the same characteristics for physical goods, digital goods, and Internet of Things. Digital goods have all 5 characteristics. Internet of Things goods have only 2 of these 5 characteristics: network effects and customizability to some extent. They are not zero marginal cost because these are physical things. It costs money to produce it, and so on. I want to make a quick distinction between 3 terms which are sometimes used synonymously, interchangeably: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Digitization essentially means converting something from an analog source to a digital source. It could be an image, it could be music, it could be a written document. And a digital source essentially means series of zeros and ones, so it can be read by the computers without making any change to the underlying process itself. It's just a digitization of documents, of analog sources into digital sources. Digitalization comes then. It means transforming a business process using digital technologies. Once those sources have become digitized, they can be used for business processes through use of digital technology. And we'll have much to talk about digital technologies presently. Next, we have by the way, these are not needed for digital or IoT products because they're already digitized. Digitalization is needed only for physical goods, what I call a legacy business. It involves digitalization of the internal systems, process, and external relationships. Basically, process of moving from an analog business to a digital business. Digital transformation also involves the use of digital technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, robotics, 3D printing, blockchain, data analytics, and so on. It happens concurrently with digital strategy. It's not like we used to discuss earlier on in strategic management, strategy and structure, which came first. They're concurrent. You cannot design digital transformation unless you know what kind of a digital strategy you're going to follow, and vice versa. And you require a specific kind of culture, which again, there will be a couple of examples we have today. And of course, you need the appropriate talent to be able to achieve all that. And for digital transformation, you need technical talent, technological talent. So what is strategy? Well, different people, professionals, professors, scholars have different definitions. To me, essentially concerns with two things: how to create and capture value, how to create, capture, and even deliver value, and how to establish and sustain competitive advantage. Well, digital strategy is also exactly the same thing: value creation, value capture, establishing and sustaining competitive. But with the adoption of digital technologies throughout the organization and digital business models. These are some of the things I will quickly talk about. So here is a image I have prepared to showcase the relationship between value creation, value capture, the kinds of things you want to do to create value is try to offer products that meet customer needs, to try and increase the willingness to pay, and reduce costs. And the value is shared with the customers, with the company, complementors, and any other stakeholders. These are some of the sources of competitive advantage in digital markets. Technological innovation in softwares and algorithms, having digital goods and IoT devices in your portfolio of businesses definitely is a great source of competitive advantage. Here are some of the digital technologies you use to create and sustain competitive advantage, and data analytics. Network effects is very important. And as we saw, digital products and even IoT products exhibit network effects. Complementary goods and services. These are goods and services with the common customers as your product. And scale and scope. Now, scale and scope, of course, all strategy people know, is an enduring concept from the days of I forget, let me just check. Alfred Chandler, how could I forget? But today, they are orders of magnitude more important than in the physical world. Let me show an example. Oh, also, as I always say, competition is now an entirely new ballgame. There are new products, for example, the IoTs, new players, startups, digital startups, even legacy businesses that have adopted digitalization in a big way could be thought of as digital players. New technologies, new playing fields, the digital markets, and new rules of the game that we just talked about, the economic rules. All of these things make competition is a very, very different ballgame today than what it was even 10 or 20 years ago. So here's the example I was trying to show you. Apple, for instance, we all know on these are some of the products which Apple has developed over time. Talking about the scale and the scope. Many of these products are world leaders in their own domains. That's the scale of operations. And the scope also, I mean, not just Apple products, but Apple services. So as I said earlier, scale and scope are by orders of magnitude larger than what they were for physical goods and services. And largely because of the zero or almost zero marginal cost for digital goods and the network effects, but also other factors, but these are the two primary factors. Tools of digital strategy include digital technologies. There are some of the digital technologies. Obviously, there are a lot more. And if you have any questions later on about any of these technologies, please ask. I cannot code, I only know about them, but we have two top professionals in the digital world who can answer your questions. And the digital business models. Most of the models we have in the digital world are what we used to have in the physical world. Premium subscription model. I'm going to talk more about subscription model. Razor and blade, data monetization, platforms and ecosystems, and even business models for professional services firms. Now, I'm very interested in the subscription model because I would say probably 90% or more of software businesses use a subscription model. Why would I buy a software package when they might update it next year? If I subscribe to it, pay a monthly or annual charge, then updates are included. And the interesting model is product as a service or software as a service and so on. These are outcome-based business models. Payment is by results only. For services, it's a similar thing. That's productization of services. Not just selling services, but also offering a product. So customers could use it themselves without having to go for the service provider. I mean, things like H&R Block offers tax preparation services in the US, but they also have tax preparation software, which I could buy and use on my own. So that's productization of services. More and more service businesses are trying to see how they can productize their services so people could buy them. And it's also, I also know that product businesses in the IT field are much, much more profitable than service businesses in the IT field. I should know because I was on the board of TIE DC, the DC chapter of TIE, and most of the members are service businesses because we are in Washington. Most of them sell to the government. Let's just focus on one particular aspect. Just one example, subscription business model, product as a service. Let me start with an example first. Rolls-Royce jet engines, which go into aeroplanes, their business model now is the airlines do not buy the jet engines. They subscribe to the jet engines. In other words, the ownership of the jet engines when they are installed in an airline belong to Boeing or Rolls-Royce. And they are also responsible for all the upkeep, all the maintenance, and any updates, they do it on their own. The customer, the airline just gets a service. It's like a basic idea, access over ownership. They need access to the jet engines rather than have to own it. So the risk of ownership goes from the customer to the manufacturer. Anyway, let's talk about it. The advantages for the manufacturer are recovering predictable revenues. They are able to have a deeper, longer-term customer engagement. Sensors inbuilt into the products offer mountains of data about customer behavior, if the product fails, and all of those things, which companies use for data monetization, another business model. Unfortunately, the disadvantages for manufacturers are they must absorb the risk, must guarantee performance. Services that used to be a source of revenue for them are now a cost because it's a payment by results model. They have to guarantee the performance. And as a result, they also need to change many organizational practices, such as their marketing department, which used to sell heavy equipment, single sale. Now they're selling subscriptions to that heavy equipment. Who is the beneficiary in this? I think the customer benefits the most. First, they get the guaranteed performance. They don't need to own the equipment, they just need the performance of the equipment. No worries regarding maintenance, supplies, replenishment, or product updates. In other words, capital expenditure moves to operating expenditure. Here are some examples in the B2C domain. B2C, first example I want to share with you is Spotify, the music sharing company. How did we listen to music earlier? I would buy a CD or a cassette, or even illegally copy the music from radio or somewhere else. But now I don't have to do anything. Spotify has made it possible for me to own legal music at a very low monthly subscription. Of course, they use the premium business model. Anyone can actually listen to any of the millions of songs anytime at Spotify.com or through their app. But if you're a paid subscriber, you can even download the music to listen to at your own convenience. So that's a product as a service. And some of you may be surprised to learn that you can even have a car on subscription. You don't have to buy it, lease it, or rent it. Volvo, Lexus, Audi, they all, and many other companies have subscription. You take a subscription, I think, for 3 or 4 years, pay a monthly subscription fee. That's it. You have the use of the car as long as the subscription lasts. And any issue with the car, that the car manufacturer will take care of. Again, access over ownership. I told you about Rolls-Royce jet engines, Philips Lighting, which has lighting they offer at the Schiphol airport in the Netherlands. They use the B2B model. They have installed lighting at the airport at their own expense, and they manage it, replace the bulbs that fail, and what the airport pays them is a monthly fee. They don't have to buy the lighting or the equipment or anything. Now, before we move to the next stage of our discussion, I want to quickly make a distinction between what we know as Industrial Internet of Things, or IIoT, versus IoT. I've talked to you about IoT. These are devices physical devices in consumer goods industries embedded with sensors and software and technologies and connected to the internet. Heart monitoring fitness bands or home appliances. These are Internet of Things. What are industrial Internet of Things? These are connected devices and machines, often in high-stakes industries like oil and gas, machinery, power generation, where unplanned equipment failure could be very costly, even life-threatening. Healthcare, for instance. There, the machines, IIoT machines, embedded with sensors, operate semi-independently with minimal human intervention, responding intelligently in real time to changes based on information received, thus reducing cost and risk of human. So if there's a failure in a machine, what used to happen is you send some human beings, some operators, some technicians to go and find the problem and correct it. But if it is IIoT machine, then it can perhaps be taken care of almost autonomously. Depends on the machine. And generally, these are B2B applications, but not always. So the examples that our guest speakers talk about would be B2B applications, industrial Internet of Things. The IoT devices have similar characteristics and IIoT devices, but generally do not have to deal with emergency situations. And oftentimes they are B2C applications. Recently I bought an HP printer and they offered me ink on demand or something like that, instant ink on demand. So they are monitoring, because it is connected to the internet, they are monitoring how much printing I'm doing. So whenever I have done enough printing based on my subscription level, they will send me a replacement of ink cartridge without me having to worry about it. So I never run out of ink cartridges. Okay, so that sort of finishes my first part of my session. The second part, I want to share with you a quick case study of Nestle's digital strategy. I know we all take Nestle products. They are the world's largest manufacturer of food and beverage products for human beings and pets. $90 billion turnover in 2020, 273,000 employees worldwide, and they have more than 5,000 IT professionals working at digital style. Who knew? What would IT be doing for chocolates and this and that? But we'll see. They have 354 factories in 79 countries, over 2,000 local and global brands. Think of scale and scope. Over 2,000 company websites, 850 Facebook pages with 210 million fans, plus Google pages and I don't know if they're on TikTok, maybe some people are, and other social media. About 13% of their total group sales in 2020 came from e-commerce. Much of the sales come from other traditional sources. 12.8% group sales came from e-commerce, and they spent 47% of their total marketing expenditure to promote e-commerce. Their objective now is to have 25% of total sales coming from e-commerce, with the marketing spend going up to 75%, digital marketing spend going to 75% of total marketing spend. So they have been involved in digital transformation of the company for many years. It has involved virtual rebuilding of the company using latest technologies covering practically all business and management functions in customer relationships. So let's see quickly, what does digital transformation involve? Digitalization of operations, technologies employed for AI, predictive analysis, robotics for factory automation, blockchain, etc. Digital innovation to offer personalized nutrition advice, AI chatbots. They use data analytics to learn more about customer behavior, to learn about marketing effectiveness, supply chain traceability. They have gone wholesale trying to raise employees' digital and social networking expertise. They set up e-business academies throughout the company and also set up an internal social network to encourage employees to be more social network savvy. Overhauling the company's culture with data placed at the center of decision making. These were some of the things they did in terms of digital transformation. In terms of digital strategy, now one thing you might wonder, did they have an IoT device as part of their, you cannot have coffee as IoT, it's something I'm going to drink. Well, they do have an IoT device, an IoT coffee maker, which you could order coffee from your cell phone, from your smartphone. So digital strategy, value creation, value capture. As I said, to increase willingness to purchase, you offer products which customers need. They are even customizing and personalizing products and customer experience. Driving customer engagement through innovative technologies, such as offering personalized health advice, custom recipes, and so on to improve customer retention and willingness to pay. They, as I said, they did launch an IoT product, a Bluetooth connected Nespresso coffee maker. In fact, I think they have 2 IoT products so far. And economies of scale, remember they're the world's largest manufacturer, and scope, 2,000 global and local brands. They try and create competitive advantage through data and other technologies to offer better customer experience. Of course, traditional high quality products, established brands, high investment in research and development and innovation. They do have a very strong market position. And they're partnered with strong companies like this, also sell Starbucks coffee. Their product is available anytime, anywhere, now through e-commerce. And mixing old with new, blending traditional marketing approaches with newer tech-savvy approaches, such as they even have a QR code on candy bars. I don't know what I would do with that, but that's what they do. Here are some of the business models they have used: e-commerce, subscription model for direct-to-consumer channels for products, such as pet care products. I mean, even on Amazon, one could subscribe. They send you something, whatever you order, every month or every 2 months. Multiple retail channels. And for bottled water, which they used to have a B2B delivery service, they would deliver bottled water in 5-gallon cans, bottles to businesses. But now they've also started offering to consumers through a direct-to-consumer healthy hydration service called Ready Refresh. Okay, that finishes my business. Here are a few selected references that I have been reading, I've used for my own book and to learn more about this, including my own book, which is coming up later this year. I mentioned much of what I mentioned today is from one part of chapter 7 from the book. And here is half a minute promo for my own book. By the way, it's not going to be a textbook, it's going to be a professional book. So it won't be priced at $60, $70. It will be priced only $25 or $30.
Thank you. Thank you, Wiener.
Thank you very much. I think if
Thank
there are
you.
any questions, perhaps we could do it afterwards. Let me invite Lokesh, our executive speaker.
Thank you very much, Professor Jain, and thank you, everybody else who actually, organized this event. Happy to be here. I actually failed to set up the background properly. I tried it, but it was, tech is failing on tech people. I just can't believe it. But I tried. Sorry about that. And once again, thank you. My name is Lokesh Kumar. Currently I'm a CTO of a company called Shiva.ai, which is a very small company right now, about 50 people. We are in a quote unquote connected car space, but more so from the perspective of commerce in vehicle based on patented algorithms we have. But I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm very new to that company, just about 6 weeks into it. I'm going to talk about the company that I co-founded in 2013, and I've been working on that from 2010. I'm going to talk about that one, and that was in roadside assistance space. I assume almost all of us have gone through a roadside event if we have been driving car at some point in our life. Cars, most people when they buy a car, they think that their car will never break. The reality is cars break way more often than people realize. And you can think about it this way, that if your car did not break, then AAA, which is a behemoth in terms of roadside assistance as a business, would not exist. AAA, I'm sorry about that. Let me share my screen. See it now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. So AAA has about 58 million members and does about 29 million events a year, which means about 29 million times for those 58 million people, cars break that AAA goes and fixes. That's one of the giants in the industry. And then there are others in the B2B space. Geico, for example, does it. There's a company called Ajero, which you perhaps have never heard, is almost $850 million business company, very, very big. And then you have Allstate that does it and things like that. So we are in that space, and though we are small, and because we are B2B focused, just like other B2B focused companies, you probably have never heard of Urgently, unless your car broke down and you drove Mercedes, BMW, Volvo, Jaguar, Land Rover, one of those cars, right? You probably have never heard of Urgently. And I don't fault you. We don't advertise. We are not on TVs. We are not on, like on any big events. You would find us in the tow shows, but not on TV. So I'm going to talk about that industry. So it's digitizing roadside assistance. So before Urgently, this is how the stuff worked in roadside industry. You broke down, you took up your phone, you called someone. Prior to smartphone, you still had those, text phones. If you remember, flip phones and all those things, you still could call. You called someone first. The way it used to work, and probably still some of the people still do it, you don't really call, your roadside assistance provider. You tend to call someone you know first. Try to figure out what should I do. Your wife, spouse, brother, sister, whoever. You try to get what should I do, and this is what happened prior to Urgently came along. You would make a call to a call center. The call center will basically check with the RSA policy issuer to find out is this policy even valid, who is this guy, right? And they would try to find you by phone number, and then from or VIN number of the car, or however they did it, or policy number, and then they will basically put that phone down, and then they will call they will say, okay, which zip code are you in? Oh, you are in like 22181. All right, let me find out which dispatch company we have contracted within that area, tow dispatch, and we'll call that guy. And then the tow dispatch guy will basically say, yeah, I will do it. And the tow dispatch will call the tech, telling him, hey, can you go help this customer? Yeah, sure. If you notice this conversation, all of this conversation is happening on phone, and the customer for that 15-20 minutes of time is basically sitting there. He has no clue what's happening. So the pain points were, it was all call based. Customer had no idea who is coming. Customer had no idea when is someone coming. They just wait. Generally speaking, the industry worked, it still does. The call center that is in between will tell the customer that, oh, you will have Blair's Towing show up in 60 minutes, and you just wait. The insurance companies, basically, their pains were they had no transparency on the cost, simply because the call center in between was handling all of that stuff. They did not know per transaction what the cost was. They had no transparency on the quality of it, the high phone bills, and then to power that whole thing, they had to maintain very large call centers. And the large call centers especially broke down when you had weather events. So if there is a snow falling in Ohio, for example, or in New York City, the call centers will completely go completely out of, essentially they will be overrun. Even the tow companies had problems. They had full-time dispatchers sitting in their centers managing just phone calls. They had no visibility about where their own tow fleet was. They had no visibility into tow mechanics behavior or quality. They just didn't know. The tow guy will show up. Sometimes, and this industry is a little bit rough, sometimes you will get a tow guy who basically has like half sleeves or no sleeves shirts, and they do a tough work. So you kind of saying, what is this guy, who is this guy type stuff. The payment processes were very slow. The tow companies would basically get paid at 30 days net, and then lots of paperwork, lots of rejections. So why did you ask for this toll? Why did you ask for this equipment cost? All of that was in there. So we saw all of that in 2012, late 2012, 2013, and we thought, this industry is ripe for disruption. There is so much in there that we can improve. And we were working on, prior to that, on home services. So we flipped at that time to say, let's stop home services. Home services is not really urgent, but car breakdown is. So we flipped. So we formed what we called Urgently. When did it start? Well, it was founded in 2013 by 6 co-founders. All of us 6, came from industry. What technologies made it possible? One question we asked ourselves was, why Urgently now? And the question was, there was basically confluence of these technologies. The smartphones, were picking up. The internet was becoming pervasive. Cloud computing was picking up, and GPS was becoming much more reliable. Almost every phone back then had a GPS, thanks to Apples and Googles of the world. What team made it possible? We were a seasoned team with decades of experience. All 6 of us were in our late 40s. This notion that, okay, startups are done by, like young college dropouts or sitting in the college, that doesn't apply to urgently. We were all six kind of old. We had our families, our kids were going to schools or colleges, and we get together and we say, we're going to do this. The things that we, also did was we were very selective in hiring who we are bringing it on, and we were laser focused only on roadside. We talked about so many things that can happen in mobility space. We said, no, we are not going to do any of that. We are only going to, digitize the roadside assistance only for specific 5 different services, which is flat tire, fuel delivery, jumpstart, lockout, and tow. And we said, we are not going to go into, anything else. Accident, no. You illegally parked your car, it got towed, no. We will not do. Municipal parking, no. Road closures and moving accident from I-95, no. So we were very, very focused. We said, we are not going to do lots of these things. And this is one of the hardest things we see in the business. How do you say no to many opportunities that might seem big? Cleanup of an accident scene is much more lucrative than simply doing it all. But we said no. Then what, and this is something is a Cascade strategic choice framework from Professor Roger Martin. I'm not going to go into this one. I mean, you will have the slides, please go ahead and read it given the time. But the idea is that strategy is not just saying, okay, what should we do? Strategy is a choice that you make, and not just one choice. You have to look at, various different things. And it is a cascade because it is not just one cascade. It applies from business to, your department to your, even small feature that you build. I'm not going to go into this one in detail. But we did apply this kind of, a strategic choice framework too urgently. So what was our winning goal? Well, our winning aspiration was we wanted a real-time, trackable, and transparent assistance experience. That was our number one stated goal forever. Customer is number one. Customer should get real-time and trackable experience like Uber, and it should be completely transparent. The customer should know what's going on. Where is the tow truck driver? The partner should know, I mean, the people who are issuing policies should know what's going on event by event basis, not just get a report at the end of the month saying, oh yeah, 50% of the people got, got served correctly, 50% failed. No, we said, you can click on any event at any time and you can see what's going on. Then we say, where do we want to play? So we said, we are going to be B2C. So our very first thing was we want to be Uber of roadside assistance. And I'll talk about why we switched from there. B2B partners that want white glove service for their customers. Notice the term white glove service. We were not going after the low end of the market. We were saying that if you are looking for, roadside assistance where, you will get a jump start for $10, we are not interested in that. We want to go after the car, customers that are driving somewhat of a mid-luxury brands like BMWs and Mercedes of the world. And then we decided, how are we going to win? So we said, before we came on, the model used to be per win per month model, PVPM. We said we're going to change that business model. We are going to go per transaction pricing, meaning we told the car companies that you don't need to pay us per month $10 per car or $1 per car. That's not our model. You only pay us when we serve your customer, which was a very different model than what was happening in the industry before that. We gave real-time tracking, transparency to all stakeholders, and we promised fast payments to the tow companies. We said, if you do the event today, by the end, in 24 hours, you should have the payment. And I talk about, did that materialize? Yes, for some tow companies. For others, they said, well, we can't handle fast payments. Well, why can't you handle fast payments? Well, my accountant only comes on weekends. So I want you to give me payments only on a weekends. Well, those are the things that you come across when you work on industries like this. What the kinds of capabilities we needed: open API based platform, mobile apps for customers and providers, real-time risk alerts, things like that. management systems. We had in-house call center because we wanted to provide white glove service, and we wanted people manning the call center that actually understood the context and the social kind of norms of the country, rather than putting the call center in somewhere else where people can speak English but they couldn't understand like what is I-95. It's a very different thing, like why I-95 is busy all the time. You don't understand those things unless you live in this country. And then you have we had partner management teams fronting our relationship management essentially with dedicated teams of people who understood technology and not just relationships. And then we had B2B sales teams. This is the value proposition of Urgently, diverse product suite, complete transparency, single global platform. We had analytics and reporting. You could just go as a car company to our system, and you could pull reporting anytime in real time, and you can see what's going on with your program. We went analog to digital, meaning if you press the button in the car, we will take over from there onwards. And we gave premium customer experience. This is the solution ended up being. So meaning now the customer had a digital app or in car, they would push a button or they will enter some other things, and then it will show up to our platform. We would talk to the RSA policy issuers platform. Notice there's no phone call there. And then we will send the request, assistance request to the tow dispatch through digital apps and portals. And notice the agent basically is now essentially managing the exceptions. The agent is not managing anymore the calls, which basically means is that all of a sudden your calls are cut to whatever 10% of the failure rate you have. And the very first thing we saw when we worked with the first car company, in the first 1 month, they actually came back asking, like, is your system really working? So we said, what's wrong? We have done, like this many. We said, no. Like in 1 month, you have cut our 250,000 calls. Like, you sure it's working? So here, look, why don't we take a look at the report of your customers, what your customer is saying in terms of real-time feedback? And they were blown away. And they became our marquee customer. Anytime we needed Dex customer, we said, please talk to them. And there we go. This is the customer experience. And notice there is more like a chat experience on the left side. It's digital though. We are using virtual agents behind it. There is a confirmation screen, and you can track where the provider is. It's a very, very simple. And if you have ever used Uber or Lyft, it kind of mirrors that experience. If you look at the service provider, which is the tow company, they also have similar experience. They can go on shift, off shift. They get an offer for a tow. They can say, I'm interested, I'm not interested. The system then assigns it. And then you can see the history, and you can look at, what did you do? You can even look at saying, oh, okay, I did at 4:12 a.m. this flat tire for Lexus. Did I get paid, today or not? So we started as a B2C in April of 2000 or March of 2014 in DC market, and we expanded very quickly to nationwide. We had a fixed price per service, so meaning we said $75 for Jumpstart and $99 for a 6-mile tow. We had mobile apps we talked about already. The mobile app for customer, you could store your credit card, you store your vehicles. We could capture your location immediately. It was simply a 3-step request. And we had family view, meaning I could add my son into the policy on the app, and I could see if my son broke down, I could track the service provider that is going to help my son. So basically I could mirror it, which was our big value proposition for families of teens and teen kids, and especially girls or women. Like my wife broke down. It's much better comfort level for me to see who is coming to help my wife in a part of DC that is kind of little economically down. We used heavily SEO, but one thing we learned was SEO is not easy. And why? Because even though it says SEO, you really are competing with Google itself. Google has ads. If you notice Google today, on the top 5, 6 results are not SEO. They are actually Google's own ad results where Google is getting paid. So Google basically is not a search engine anymore, in my opinion. It is an ad promotion engine. SEM, paid Google advertising, you see that all the time. Problem is it's very expensive. Running ads on Google, for especially for tow business, you are looking at per conversion of the order of anywhere from $28 to $30, which means you have no margin. Everything is going to Google. You're competing with every single tow company out there, and you're competing with AAA as well. So what we noticed very quickly was that we are not going to be able to make any headway in B2C market. So in 2015, we reconfigured our platform, and we reconfigured our operating model, which means that we set up partner management teams, call center, portals, whatnot. And we started doing B2B pilots with car manufacturers. The pilots that you run with car manufacturers are very expensive and long. They are just way more demanding than a customer who is broken down. However, in 2016, we did win a major car company contract. We brought the platform to Australia, UK, India with a partner, which I think was not a right thing to do at that stage of the company. But we did double down on B2B. Today, Urgently serves multiple car companies. Almost all the big companies in US, car companies, are on the platform. There are some insurance companies as well. And then there are fleets, rental fleets, like Enterprise, LMO, National, and Uber. This is the current industry trends. So Urgently did set the bar for industry. The bar has been rising every year. As you would know, that if you enter into a market with a digital strategy, it's visible to everybody. Other people will follow really quickly. They say, I can do it too. So you have to keep raising the bar. Almost everyone has digital experience now. I mean, you probably will say, like, what the heck is he talking about, right? Everything is digital now. AI ML is being applied to dispatch, pricing, risk management, fraud prevention, virtual agents, whatnot. This is something that is transforming Urgently also. Urgently essentially in 2013 was more of a rule-based engine. It's all changing now. Predictive maintenance is on the horizon, meaning with the connected cars should be able to tell you, I'm going to break down, and it's coming. EVs, electric vehicles, will change the industry, and drones. You could use drones for battery delivery, for parts delivery, fuel delivery. There are lots of regulatory issues around drones even right now. It's going to take time, but when you see a technology that is playing a bit in at some level, you can start imagining where it will go, and I think ultimately it will go. And last is the lessons. So digital strategy essentially sounds easy, but the industry where you apply that strategy to determines how hard it will be. Scaling digital and physical industry is not easy. And I can talk about for days as to all the challenges we faced, how to scale it. That's not easy. Finding a wedge into the ecosystem is the best way for you to go. You need to find what's the small thing that I can do, and then get the foothold, and then you should be able to go. Data is your competitors will copy, so keep innovating. I talked about already as well. Data is your biggest asset. The more data you collect, the better you will become. Technologies like AI, ML are powerful automation tools. If you are not thinking of AI, ML, how that can change your product or your service, then I think I can't see the future, but I think you should be prepared that somebody else will come applying AI, ML to the problem you are working on, and it will disrupt you. That's all. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I think next up is Sridhar.
Yeah, thank you.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lokesh. So I want to also thank the Academy of Management, Professor Jain, and also the STR division for this opportunity. I think we have quite less time. I also see a lot of questions already in the chat window. So I will try to talk about my topics much faster, but I have some challenges in sharing the screen again. Just give me a moment. Okay, while I figure this out, let me continue talking so that we do not lose time. So yeah, my name is Sridhar. I'm working as the Vice President Platforms at Viessmann. So Viessmann is a heating systems manufacturer in Germany, quite a big market leading player in Germany, but may not be so well known in the US right now. So I will talk about what the size of our company is and what we do here. So we are essentially a family-owned business. Yeah. So we have been existing for more than 105 years, and still somehow there is a challenge. Vinod, is it possible to share the slides from your screen? And maybe I can just stop.
I'll have to go back and let me find your email with the slides.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I will go through the content in the meantime. Yeah, so essentially we are a 105-year-old company run as a family company. It has been passed on from generations. It started in 1917, and there have been a lot of generational changes that have happened within the company. And now the youngest family member, it was started by the grandfather and then the father, and then the son is now taken over as the CEO of Viessmann Group. As you can see, there is a lot of change that has been happening in the last several years, not just because of the generational change in the running of the company, but also because of the market needs and what we need to do within this industry. So Viessmann's vision is to transform from a pure heating systems manufacturer, hardware based, into a climate solutions provider, essentially to provide digital services and solutions connected to the heating systems, and transform towards both the consumer experiences and the installer and partner experiences to become more digitized. Yeah. But all of that is fundamentally based on the purpose. Yeah. So the purpose of our company is we create living spaces for generations to come. Yeah. So what we mean by that is we want to create climate solutions that can help optimize the homes by intelligently managing the heating systems, air conditioning systems, air ventilation, and thereby create better living spaces, not just from the comfort perspective, but also from an energy perspective. As you all know about the energy crisis and the climate goals that every country in the world, including Europe and Germany, are all working towards, it is important to start moving towards renewable energy and reduce dependence on fossil fuels and so on. So that is what really triggers our purpose, that we want to create living spaces that can sustain for multiple generations to come. And that's kind of underpinning our entire strategy and activities, right? from the company background perspective, we are more than 13,000 employees strong. It's a 3 billion euro revenue company on a yearly basis, still run as a private company, as a family holding. So it's fairly large company with global operations. We have more than 40% of our employees and also our revenues coming from countries outside of Germany. So we are well established in Europe and also in the US, even in Australia and in Asia and so on, right? China and all of this so we are a global company essentially, and this transformation has been happening in the last several years. Thank you, Professor Jain. I think you can.
Is it coming through now?
Yeah, exactly. I can see.
Okay, I'll go a few slides.
Yeah, you can actually keep going down further. Yeah, you can go into the next few slides because okay. I'm trying to run fast. You can go into the climate solutions slide.
Yeah,
exactly. So essentially, as I talked about, we have systems running in the consumers' homes, heating systems, cooling systems, and smart thermostats, that can control the temperature within the living room. And we have a wide portfolio. Next slide, please. The portfolio covers all of the different ranges of products that we are talking about, right? Covering all the way from heating, cooling, air quality, and also more recently about the electricity generation and energy storage. I talked about moving away from the fossil fuels to non-fossil fuel-based energy sources, right? So this means that our entire portfolio has to be reimagined on the one hand, going away from oil and gas-based heating systems towards more electricity and solar and wind power and stuff. Yeah. So from a product portfolio standpoint, we are undergoing a lot of transformation. While on the other hand, we do not just look at it purely from a product standpoint, but also from a digital perspective, how we really can transform our experience with our customers and partners, right? And that's what I want to cover in this context of this seminar, combining both. What we did is to create finally what we call as an integrated solution offering. But the path towards this was basically a set of few key motivations or triggers. So firstly, as you can imagine, this industry is a very traditional industry. So the partners, what we call as partners, are essentially our installer companies who actually are responsible to go and install heating systems, configure them, and make it ready and working, right? These are mostly typically in a separate room, what typically is called as a technic room or in the cellar, where all these systems are running and not really known to the end user or let's say a typical customer. So these partners used to spend a lot of time, in terms of each installation and configuration. It was very complex. They were spending a lot of time. And from a manufacturer perspective, as Fiesman, we were not really aware of where there could be problems or bottlenecks or errors. How do we really deal with them? How do we know, which installers, are doing a good job, or which installers are having challenges in the field? How is our real customer feedback about our products? How are we able to really engage with consumers directly to build our next set of features? All this was missing in a typical traditional industry, right? So that is really what started our path towards digitalization. And this happened already several years ago. We started realizing this back in 2015, and we started looking at various approaches. So we need to cover both the B2B and the B2C aspects. On the one hand, we need to make sure that our installer partners are comfortable with what we are trying to do. We need to keep those trusted relationships and loyalty going, while actually also getting a direct access to the consumer to get direct feedback on the products. And we also had to create a technology platform that can support all of these transformational approaches. So we created a complete IoT platform, right from making our own products intelligent, that they can have connectivity within the product that can then talk to our backend cloud platform. And while at the same time, we also created apps for both B2C and B2B perspective in order to really transform the user experience. This slide talks about the consumer experience on the left, which is what we call as the vCare. This is like a B2C app that consumers can download on the Android App Store or the iPhone App Store, so that they can actually interact with their heating systems. They can configure them. They can set the temperature. They can also get notifications about how how it is performing, and also we can gather also feedback about how the consumers are operating these systems and when they're using it and stuff. On the right is what we call as the V Guide. This is basically our B2B app, or basically what our installer partners use. And this is basically all about installation, configuration, troubleshooting, providing them the right guides, how to do a complex installation, while at the same time having a remote access from the FISMAN perspective for our service technicians in order to remotely service systems if there is anything breaking down, or if there is a need for a spare part to be replaced, then we get that notification already in our backend through the partner portal. Yeah. So there is possibility for remote service and also proactive maintenance on the so that helps save time for the installers. Yeah. These are some pictures of how the system looks like. On the left, you can see the how the partners are going to see a view. They have a complete dashboard, and they can use either a tablet or a phone or a desktop in order to observe which systems are connected, what is the current status of them, how is the current room temperature adjusted for each of these systems that are currently running in the consumers' homes. While on the right, you can see this is the remote service that we can see as FISMAN, how the systems are operating, whether there is a need for intervention, and we can also then do predictive maintenance to actually fix things before they break. Yeah, so this kind of transforms the experience both from a B2B and a B2C perspective. So this is on one part of how we do the digital transformation, and I want to move on to the next part, which is really on the internal organizational transformation. Right. So on the one hand, we try and transform the product portfolio, and we create digital apps and transformative experiences for our installer partners and consumers. On the other hand, we also need to transform the organization. Yeah. So we can go to the next couple of slides. And for this, the whole point of how do we transform the culture comes into picture, right? Because this is a large transformation within the organization, as you can imagine. Right from our sales processes, right from our R&D setup, and also the way the decisions are made have to change. And this can happen only when we are actually understanding the purpose and context in which we operate. Because we are a climate solutions company and heavily in the middle of the energy transition, we are also helping to really push forward the transformation to the non-renewable energy sources. And that purpose actually brings everyone together. And it kind of helps to align our employees and rally them around this digitalization and the vision, while also convincing our partners and end users. But that is not all, right? It's also about work culture, internally how we work as a company. And there we actually not just did, like, say, the typical things that people do, like having open office spaces and having game machines, coffee machines and so on, yeah, to improve the employee experience. But it's not just about that when we talk about internal cultural transformation. It is also about the tools and routines and what we do within the company. And next slide, please. There we actually did a lot of different ways. So first is when we want to communicate to our employees, we started adopting digital means. So there is a regular meeting, even all hands employees meeting, right from people on the production floor to people in the administrative areas and people in the sales areas. All of them are actually attending all of the all hands meetings in a digital manner. So it is all completely transformed digitally. Everything is done in a digitalized way, even internally within the company. And decisions are made much faster. The hierarchy is changed, and everyone is really made to think about digital business models and how we can transform our operational routines. And this helped to really bring the transformation both from the organizational cultural perspective and also towards the consumers and partners. So just to summarize on the lessons learned, what we learned in the last several years in this journey is that we need to understand the consumer needs and partner needs, and not just to only look at B2C or B2B. We have to really bring it both together. We need to transform the organizational culture so that everyone aligns towards the digitalization. And last but not least, the routines and the decision making has to change. But we know that we are only at the very beginning phase of this whole digital transformation. As we start looking into the future towards non-renewables, we still have to go a long way, not just from the company transformation, but also the requirements for digitalization. Yeah, with that, I know I rushed through quite a bit. Sorry about the technical issue with the slides. Hopefully, you could get the picture of what I was trying to explain. I'm open for any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Slide. Okay. Sorry, we have run out of time, but I think, Tony, can we spend maybe 10 minutes?
Yeah, I was thinking about spending another 5 to 7 minutes to address some of the questions being raised.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to write down some of the questions that were raised. Scott Livergood asked the question, what's the difference between leasing and subscribing to a car? But in both cases, you don't own the car. The car company owns the car, but in terms of subscribing, you have nothing to worry about in terms of maintenance. You just have use of the car, and if there's any problem, the company takes care of it. In leasing, you have to take care of it. I know that because I have leased a car at one time. There was a question about digital strategy across borders. Thank you very much for asking, because my book has a chapter on that. This global strategy for digital businesses. Now, global strategy for physical businesses is not important because we have been doing that for a long time. I have a whole book on that. But this new book that I have has a chapter on digital strategy for global strategy for digital businesses. Samrat Bagchi asks how traditional firms decide to invest in digital transformation. Well, it is the business environment today. If they don't do it, they'll be out of business. That's my view, unless the other speakers, Lokesh and Sridharan, want to say something about it. How traditional businesses decide to invest in digital transformation.
I mean, I think Sridharan is going through that.
Yeah, maybe I can add a comment. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It is definitely a challenge. On the one hand, you need to really make sure that your traditional products or legacy products are generating your revenues. Right? They are the cash cows. You need the profits and the revenues that come from those traditional products, which you can then use to invest in new technologies and newer products and transforming your portfolio. So there is definitely a need for a balance. But because, especially in the energy industry, if I talk from our company perspective, the transition is happening very fast and much more accelerated than what we imagined even 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. And the recent energy crisis and also the recent conflict, right, in the global situation is accelerating all of these push. So we have to really invest in newer products and technologies. There is no other go. Otherwise, the company may not survive for the next 100 years. Yeah, so we are a very traditional family-owned business. So we think long-term. That's the reason we always balance the investments. We are not driven by short-term quarterly profit targets.
Thank you, Sridhar. These are all the questions I thought I had. Let me just see check. Okay, I don't see. I mean, there are a couple of comments by Michael Liveline. We'll have a private conversation about those things. That's for the future. Okay. Michael, Tony, Heather, any thoughts, any questions? No, that's fine.
I think we can just, I'll leave it to Tony, but I think we could, Shri, Vinod, Lokesh, thank you. I mean, wonderful, detailed examples for us. Thank you so much.
do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure with you.
Thank you.